Thank you so much. Welcome to Washington. I'm just so grateful to be here tonight with all of you. And I'm grateful to class and the great work that you're doing. And I'm especially grateful to the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, to Harold Levy, to Rebecca Cullen, to the leadership of that organization who've been tremendous allies to the First Lady, tremendous allies to the White House. And the reason this is important, the reason we're all here today is because ultimately, fundamentally, we believe in the power and the promise of every young person in this country and what they're going to do to help us continue to be the bulwark of freedom, an opportunity in the world. And that's what the American dream really is all about, and that's what has been brought about by our investment in education. Now, when I came to the First Lady's office, I spent 5 years before then working for the Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan. And when I was there, I never thought I'd leave working for Arne Duncan. He was someone who'd grown up on the south side of Chicago, seen the power of education, working at his mom's after-school program on the south side, and saw the power of just having that mentor, having that person who believed in you. And he brought that to Chicago public schools, and then he brought it to the White House. And I loved working for him, and I felt like I had my dream job. And then the First Lady called, and she told Secretary Duncan, she said, hey, you know, it's then the election happened in 2012. She said, I love what I'm doing on Let's Move, trying to end childhood obesity. I love what I'm doing working with military families and joining forces. I want to keep doing these things, but I think I want to start talking about education. What do you guys think? And when the First Lady calls you and says, I want to talk about your issue, your first thought is like, you've won the lottery. Because, you know, whether you see her on a TV show doing push-ups with Jimmy Fallon or making a joke with Will Ferrell or dancing, you know, judging a dancing competition, you think this lady has got it. And anything she touches is going to turn to gold. And we began brainstorming. Okay, the First Lady, Michelle Obama, wants to talk about education. What do we want to do with that? And we started having conversations. Well, would it be better for her to talk about early learning? Oh, my goodness. What if she got us to make huge investments in high-quality early learning education? That would be incredible. Well, wait, what if we got her to talk about how we want to invest in high-quality school teachers to make sure that we're changing the way we think about the teacher pipeline? That would be amazing, too. And so we started talking to her about these issues. And what became clear was that she wanted to talk about what it meant and what the difference it made in her life to go to college. Because you may not know this, First Lady Michelle Obama and her brother Craig, they grew up in a family on the south side of Chicago, and their parents had not gone to college. They grew up in a middle-class family, and the First Lady's older brother, Craig, he was recruited to play basketball at Princeton. And the First Lady tells this story, so I do not feel bad speaking ill of Craig Robinson. But essentially, the First Lady actually had one of those experiences in high school where she worked hard, she was a good student, she went to a magnet school, had to take a bus about an hour and a half every day to get to school. But her counselor told her, you know, I don't know if you're Princeton material. You know, maybe you're setting your sights too high. Which is the wrong thing to tell a young Michelle Obama. And so, you know, that just made her work harder, but she'll say it. She said, well, my brother Craig is in Princeton, and I know I'm smarter than Craig. So I'm going to Princeton. No one's telling me I can't go to Princeton. So she got it. She applied to Princeton. She was accepted to Princeton, and she excelled there. But it was hard. But she talks really honestly with young people about her struggles being a first-gen college student and what it meant for her to be on campus and not that have many other students of color on campus or many other students who had her similar experiences. She talks about getting to Princeton and meeting a student who had a building named after her uncle. You know, not necessarily the types of people that the First Lady was meeting around the corner in Hyde Park. And so for her, she saw the difference going to Princeton made in her life and how it put her on a path that has led her to where she is today. And she said, you know, if a young person like Michelle Robinson can grow up on the south side of Chicago and have all these opportunities because of an education, because of a college education, there are so many other Michelles and so many other Craig Robinsons out there, and we need to be finding them, and we need to be investing in them, and we need to be making sure that they get the opportunity to live up to their potential. And that's the origin of Reach Higher. That's what the First Lady said. She said, I want to talk to young people, and I want to let them know about my story because I believe in them. And so really, Reach Higher has become about talking to every young person around the country to inspire them around their education. I like to tell people that you can think of the First Lady as the school counselor-in-chief for the entire country. And as school counselor-in-chief, the things she's talking about shouldn't come as too much as a surprise to a room like this. Number one, and I know you talked to Chester Finn today and others, number one is college and career exposure. If you are a first-gen or a low-income student, you may not have grown up in a family where college was the expectation. You may not have grown up in a family where the notion that you had to go to college or that it was the expectation was the norm, or in that school, or even in that city or community. So we need to make sure that we are exposing students to that experience. So what are some of the concrete ways we can do that? We know simple things. Are we bringing students onto college campuses? Are we showing them what's possible? Are we making sure that students are talking to real near-peer mentors, those students who are just a few years above them in grade level and age, who can come back to school and tell them, hey, I didn't think I could make it in college, but I did. I'm taking classes. I've gone to the writing center. I've applied. I'm excelling. You can do this too. Famously, a lot of Gear Up programs in Chicago will bring students every year. They call it the Trip to Mecca. They come to Howard University, and they bring low-income first-gen kids to Howard for a weekend where they can stay with students who are from that same neighborhood in Chicago. They can see the possibility. They can answer those questions, make sure that those students understand you can do this too. And we know that in terms of exposure, it's not just about getting on that campus. It's also meeting and understanding people with real jobs and careers so students see that pathway to college as an opportunity. So that means more mentorships, more opportunities to go and interact with someone who's doing a career field to say, oh yeah, if I want to be a welder, if I want to be a computer engineer, if I want this career path, some education is going to be part of my life. But students need to get that experience as well. Most recently, and I encourage you guys to check this out, the First Lady announced in January, we have partnered with Google and Google Expeditions. Some people here, maybe you got in the New York Times, that little Google cardboard thing in the mail. I'm seeing some nods. If you got that, that is where you can take a virtual 3D tour of things, and we now have virtual college 3D tours. So maybe you're thinking, you know what, I've only got 2 college counselors at my school, or I don't know if we can afford a field trip. Well, now, with Google Cardboard, all you need is your personal smartphone and that Cardboard app, and you can visit and tour over 25 colleges and universities across the country. The First Lady taped her tour to Howard Community College, where they were looking at nursing programs, vocational and tech programs. We now can show students what's possible, what's it like, just by sitting down with them in a room, and that's going to be a game changer, we hope. So that's number one, college and career exposure. Number 2 is thinking about the financial aid and college affordability piece. Now, everyone, I don't care what stripe you come from, is really concerned about the rising cost of college. And the administration has been working hard to address this issue. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that students and parents understand there is money out there for college. Now, if everyone here, I'm sure, has memorized the FAFSA acronyms. You've made your kids do FAFSA raps. I've seen FAFSA town hall dances. Counselors are amazing at trying to get kids to fill out the FAFSA. It takes time, but it is really important. And we know that by filling out the FAFSA, you can have access to $150 billion in federal student aid. And so last year, the First Lady actually had a competition for which high school was doing the best job getting young people to fill out the FAFSA, and that's how we selected our high school commencement last year. Now, we want to make sure more students are filling that out. The President and the First Lady have done a lot to try to improve the FAFSA. It now takes about 24 minutes or so to fill out. And hopefully you all know that the President announced at Back to School that starting this October 1st of 2016, you will be able to use the previous year's tax data to fill out the FAFSA. So the FAFSA is available earlier, and you have 3 more months to do it, and you can use previous year tax data. We think that's going to be a big deal, giving people more time to fill out the FAFSA, this complicated thing, and helping people make that decision more easily. The third bucket I want to talk about is the academic preparation, being the social emotionally ready. We know that anywhere between 1/3 and 40% of entering public college freshmen, these are the people who did all the right things. They finished high school, they applied to college, they got into college, they showed up on day one. The people showing up on day one, 1/3 to 40% have to take remedial classes. I'm going to Boston tomorrow, so I'm going to pick on Massachusetts. Do we have any Massachusetts folks here? Oh, good. Now I can just pick on them shamelessly. People think of Massachusetts as having famously rigorous standards and doing a really great job with all of their public school students. And I tell the stat, 1/3 of entering public college freshmen in Massachusetts have to take remedial classes. So that means they show up on day one, they think they're gonna be a big deal, college freshmen, and they take that placement test, and they're told, nope, you gotta go back and take remedial English. You gotta go back and take remedial math. And then you're using those scarce grants, those scarce loans, those scarce resources just to get up to speed. And for too many students, this ends up being the end of their program. They get stuck in that cycle and they drop out. And then they have they have debt and no degree. And that is the worst scenario that we could imagine for our young people. So one of the things we're trying to do is make sure, and this is something I hope all of you are working really hard on, the First Lady's been talking about how we can ensure that more young people are taking college-ready classes while they're still in high school, dual enrollment, early college high school, working with the All-In campaign at College Board to make sure more students of color are taking AP exams, and not just taking those AP classes, but passing them and getting that college credit while they're still in high school, which is going to reduce the cost, reduce the time, and make it more likely that students stay in school and are excited and interested in doing what's next. But we know it's not just about whether they have the academic pillar ready. We also want to make sure that young people today have that social emotional skill. Do they know how to bounce back when they fail? Do they know how to handle things when it gets rough, to work hard, to work past it? What people now are calling grit, persistence, tenacity, the non-cognitive factors, we're now seeing a huge growth and emphasis in that area. And the First Lady, she loves this. She loves to talk about this. This is her favorite thing when we go and talk to a group of young people, because she'll say, I don't want you to make any excuses about what you don't have, because you are in control of how hard you can work, and no one can take that away from you. And that is, again, her experience, because when she thinks about going to Princeton, she says, oh God, I met all these people who had so many advantages. How am I ever going to catch up? And she said, well, I'm just going to out-hustle all of these people. So she was going to go find that writing center, find that tutor, get help, and work as hard as she can. And I will tell you, that is her ethos and what has let her be successful in life, and that's what she tells to every young person. All right, maybe you don't think that your teacher is giving you the experience you need. Maybe you feel like you're in a bad neighborhood. Maybe you're in a community that doesn't have the resources you wish you had. You can find that help. You can out-hustle. You can go out there and you can work hard and you can claim your future. And so we talk a lot about how students can get that social emotional well-being, how we can reward as a society grit and persistence and tenacity, and make sure that we're teaching that to young people because they need to know how to fail. Success in life, and now we have longitudinal studies talking about this. It's much more about whether or not you can persist when things are difficult. You know how to handle failure, and you know how to move on past it. The First Lady says this, usually too much applause, that the president fails a lot. And she says, you better believe he knows how to fail, and he's learned from that. And we, especially in Washington, D.C., like to make it sound like success is this clean and silky path to the top. But every single person in this room has failed. And what do we do to teach our young people that failure is actually a natural and good part of life? It is a natural and good part of success. And knowing how to fail and fail well and learn from it and move on is going to be critical for all of us to keep moving forward. The last thing that I'll tell about where we've been putting an emphasis for the First Lady, now, of course, you know that great school principals are critical to school success. We know we need great teachers. But one of the things the First Lady noticed was that someone who hasn't been at the table is the school counseling community. Everyone here has their own personal statistics, so I won't belabor it too much, but the national average for a school counselor is 1 for every 471 students. That's about twice the recommended rate from the National Counselor Associations. Any Californians? Any Californians? All right, you guys know. Now I'm gonna shame you. I'm sorry. This is my gasp line. In California, it's 1 counselor for every 1,000 students. See, I did not pay her earlier. This woman and I have never met before. But that is absolutely the line that upsets people the most every time I go and speak. One counselor for every 1,000 students. The Undersecretary of Education, Ted Mitchell, when he talks about that statistic, he likes to say that we have a math problem and we have a moral problem. How can we pretend that we are expecting for students in those communities, especially our first generation, our vulnerable students, who don't have someone to help them guide them through that pathway, if we aren't giving them those resources, that counselor who can be that Sherpa, who knows how to advocate for that student, to be in the AP class, to be in the AVID course, to make sure when the parent says, no, he needs to stay home after high school to work, to say no. He needs to go to college. And you know what? He needs to go away from home, because that's going to be the best ticket to the investment in your family, in your success, and in your future long-term freedom. That's what counselors, well-trained counselors, understand about the college and career pathway and about what it means to really fight for a young person and fight for a family. So we've tried to put more resources towards counselors. We held a few summits in 2014, 2015, and we've got a few more planned, but I will talk about one of them that actually the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation was instrumental in planning. We had a college opportunity summit in December of 2014, and the president and the first lady said, look, Congress, they're maybe not as interested in doing things right now, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop asking for big change. And so they said, just to come to this event, to come to this summit, we want you to commit to what you're going to do to increase college opportunity for young people, and especially our most vulnerable people. And we asked for commitments around increasing STEM graduates. We asked for increases for colleges, for what they were doing to organize together to make sure students were being successful. We asked what K-12 and higher ed were doing to come together as communities to share that data, to make sure they're moving forward. And yes, we asked what were schools, communities, nonprofits, and foundations doing to make sure school counselors were at the table, that school counselors were getting the pre-service training they needed and the in-service training they needed so they could actually help students on the ground get into and be successful in college. And I'm pleased to say that due to those efforts, we had over 630 commitments from institutions around the country, tens of millions of dollars, and hundreds of thousands of students who now are going to have more opportunity than would have before. And it is a testament to people like Harold Levy and the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation that we've been able to make this movement and go forward. Now, that's one thing we've done. I'll tell you that the First Lady is someone who really understands the power of recognition. And if you think about how she's tried to change the way we think about exercise and healthy eating and eating broccoli, she's tried to bring this to education too. And one of the simplest things we did was we went to the American School Counselor Association and we told them, has anyone ever invited you guys to the White House? And they said, no. No. So we said, well, why don't we start bringing the School Counselor of the Year to the White House? I think that's a good idea. We honor the Teacher of the Year every year for the past 60 years of the White House. We bring them, and we've never once invited the Counselor of the Year. We're going to change that. So last year, for the first time in history, the White House honored the School Counselor of the Year and the 45 School Counselor of the Year finalists with a East Room event at the White House and told them that you belong here and you belong to be recognized in this community. And we did it again just 3 weeks ago, and the First Lady at that event announced that it may be one of the last things we do before they kick us out of Washington, D.C. in January of 2017, but we are bringing the School Counselors of the Year back to the White House in 2017, and I'm hopeful that no matter who occupies the White House in 2017, that that's something they'll continue on after we're gone, because it's critical that we give counselors the recognition that they deserve and need. So I'll tell you about one more thing, and then I'll let you go. In October, we thought about, gosh, we've only got a little more than a year left. How are we going to make this count? And for folks who know me well, know that I usually come to most meetings with a countdown clock at the top of my meeting. I say, I'll tell you, today we only got X amount of days left in the administration. And today, for those of you who want to know, it's 329 days. 329 days until January 20th, 2017. Now, for folks who know me, know I've been with the president. It'll be 9 years in September. I started on his first campaign. I had a full head of hair then. That's a true story. So I'm a little tired, but that's not why I talk about the countdown clock. I talk about the clock because I want to make sure that we are taking advantage of every single second that we have in the White House, that we have with this president and this first lady who so deeply understand the power of education to change lives, that we're taking advantage of that. And I think all of you being here today, all of you being part of this class coalition, all of you coming together with the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation is because you understand that the clock is always ticking for every young person and their fate and their promise of what we can do next. So I'm gonna ask now something from you all. Many people, after they find out I work for the First Lady, after complimenting my haircut, will say something like, Eric, gosh, you know what would change America? And I say, what? And they say, if the First Lady spoke at my high school. And I say, I agree. But here's your chance, guys. I know each and every one of you wants to see the First Lady at your high school this spring, or maybe this fall for back to school. I have a chance for you. We, on April 26th, are going to be celebrating College Signing Day. I talked about how are we going to change the culture around education. Many of you may do College Signing Day ceremonies. You might be familiar that May 1st is the deadline by which high school seniors are supposed to let their college know where they intend to go. And many schools, yes, Prep is one of the ones I know that has done it the best, have taken the idea of the athlete who says, all right, I'm going to go play football at Florida State, and say, no, let's have a ceremony that celebrates these young people who are coming to college. That's what we should be celebrating as a society. And so the First Lady, when we launched Reach Higher 2 years ago, she did a College Signing Day in San Antonio, Texas. And there were maybe a couple dozen ceremonies around the country. And we said, we should ask more people to do this. And we did. And last year, we went to Detroit, Michigan to celebrate Signing Day, and 600 other communities held Signing Day ceremonies. Well, you can believe we're doing it again. This year, it'll be on April 26th. That's a Tuesday. I want you all to go to reachhigher.gov and sign up. You can sign up to let us know about the Signing Day you're having. Request an administration speaker. That's the secret code for you want the First Lady. And I would love for us to come celebrate a Signing Day ceremony with you all, because ultimately, it's not just about every class at a time, every student at a time. If we really want to get to that 2020 goal, if we really want to make sure more people are educated, we do need to change how we as a culture honor education and honor educators. And that is what College Signing Day is about. So please, I encourage you all to check that out. And I will say, with just 329 days to go, this president and this First Lady could not be more excited and grateful to have the opportunity to serve with the leaders and educators and incredible people like you who are fighting for young people. And so I want to thank all of you. I really do believe that you are all doing the hard work. We have it easy in Washington, D.C. You guys are doing the hard work on the front lines, and I'm grateful for your service. I'm grateful for your partnership, and please help us, and don't be shy about telling us how we can do more to support you, not just for the next 329 days, but also for the rest of the President and First Lady's time in education, because they've said that whatever they do next, it is going to involve helping young people through education pursue their dreams. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your service. I want to thank each and every one of you for what you're doing on behalf of young people. And I hope that you will leave Washington, D.C. more refreshed and more hopeful about what's possible for our nation's young people. So cheers. Have a great evening.